Welcome to the latest episode of the Mesmerise podcast, and with us we have Daniel Krieger from the band Reawaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's Old English, and actually, it's called Reawaken. Reawaken. Someone pronounced it. I don't know it either. We just call it Reawaken.
Brilliant. So I do have to ask about the band name actually in this case. I know it's usually the first question that everyone asks on literally any interview. I hate to be that cliche, but where why that name in particular?
Yes. As I already said, it's Old English, and it is for the modern word reawaken. And this is quite the history of this band, or this small project, just consisting of two members right now. And it's about being long time ago, being together, making some music, and then departing for about 10 years or so, then finding each other again and making up another project, but the old stuff. So we call it old school or something like that. And we just search for a name for it, and a name that is quite common for that music, but not already given away. So we came to reawaken the reawakening of us both making some music, and of course reawakening and reawake and something like that is resurrected. It is all just given away. And then we came to the logo. It comes from Old English letters, and then there was some searching in the internet, and there was the Old English word for reawaken, and this was Reawaken. And this sounds quite good, and is quite a nice logo.
Fantastic. I mean that's actually quite clever because that's the thing. We in the UK we wouldn't generally know about this, so it's quite nice. Sort of like hearing that. It's like, oh, okay, it is something that I've learned about my culture. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm wondering that you don't know.
I don't learn a lot about the English culture to be honest, but I've not always lived here, so we're not really taught a lot about like the like more Celtic, like more older side of Britain. We get taught things more like Henry VIII, um, slavery, World War, that kind of stuff. That's
Yeah,
basically I've basically just gone throughout the entire education system of history within the UK. That's basically all they really teach. But when I
yeah,
went to school, anyway, it's been a good few years. Well, I've not been in school for over 10 years. It feels really bizarre to think back on that now. But
yeah.
back to yourself. So I've had to listen to your stuff. It reminds me very much of it's somewhat doom metal esque, but it's not doom metal. It's got a harder edge to it. Like the description that you guys have, which is old school death metal, like vibe at least. It it suits it very well. I think it does. I think it's the way when I listen to it, it sounds very much like doom metal, but with a harder edge. Like if that makes sense at all.
First of all, you can see me, Danny.
Oh yeah, I can. I do
Oh,
apologize again for the
okay,
lack of camera.
cheers. I'm very thirsty because I come from a sports training,
Oh yeah,
and so I'm apologize.
no, that's perfectly fine. And what sports do you do exactly?
Um, yeah, you asked what we call, if we could call it that way. I don't know. I have read now a bunch of reviews about our album, and everybody is calling it in another way. And but there is some. there is something in it. What you said that is kind of repeating. People don't really know to categorize it definitely in this or that, and so do we. During the last time, we discussed a lot about what we call ourselves, despite of Reawaken, and we came on so many categories that we just dropped that issue. We don't know what we do, and we don't know where it will progress in the future. And meanwhile, we have written some new songs, and I don't know either what that is. Sometimes there is the word progressive, and yes, indeed, there are some progressive elements in it, and then it is really rough, old school, and sometimes it is just not metal at all. It's just played with guitars and a distortion, and you could say, yes, this is a very kind of metal sound, but this could be jazz either, or classical music, or yes, I don't know. It's just coming out, and we like what is coming out, and we do our best. And when we say, yeah, okay, now it's finished, it's another song, and so we dropped that issue. I don't know to categorize. I think it's the most the best the best if you are categorized by yourself. This is just Reawaken style. This would be the best if someone says that.
And that's completely understandable. And personally, I think that's a good thing if you can't be 100% categorized into just one sort of genre, which is always great. It's always a great feeling because you always get a different response every time you play as well, either whether it's a review or if someone sees you at a gig. It's always a pleasant surprise.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Talking about live, since no one's playing live at the moment, but as I saw, it's you and Marco, the drummer. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Band.
Oh, yes.
So, how do you guys? How does your live setup work exactly?
It does not work at all because we didn't made it so far. Not only due to the corona crisis, just we do not have the project in that way with other guys to play it live, and we don't want to use any sequencers or something like that to just perform it. Yes, we just dropped the issue as well. As long as there are no other guys and no other opportunity to play at all, we just dropped that issue. We are just focusing on home recording.
Okay, so in relation to the home recording, so are you guys like, do you record everything at home, or do you like do demos at home, go to the studio, or what is your process exactly?
The process was until now it was quite the same. Um, um, I just began a few years ago with just recording my ideas, with starting to play the guitar. Before I was just a bass player, and there comes the shouting, and everything was yeah, quite complete, but not the drums. The drums were out of the computer, just any presets, and it do work to do a demo or so. But then Marco came in, and just looking for what I'm doing after not having seen for 10 years, he just looking in and hearing what I just have done for myself, just to experiment with it. And he says, yes, this is quite nice stuff. And I said, yes, it's only one thing missing. Today you can everything there's everything you can do with a computer just alone, but the drumming is quite missing. And he said, yes, I can try. I thought that I would make music again, but I can just try it. And then he came to buy a drum set and the trigger equipment and anything you need, and does it at home like I do, and we just exchange the tracks
Okay,
so
cool.
that everyone can do it at home just for himself, and after finishing it comes together for the mixing. And for the album, we have collected all the tracks and then gave it to Andy Klaassen, as you know, and he could mix and master it professionally.
Fantastic.
That's
I mean, as I saw on the what was sent to me, you guys originally were in a band back in '94. Yeah, I got like
yes,
the years right. So yeah, '94. So what's it like? It's like, because there's a substantial gap of like 20 years from when you did things back in those days to now. Because as you said yourself, like you can do everything practically at home at this point,
yeah,
which you could do back in those days, but you'd use tape and that'd be expensive.
yeah,
That would take time,
yeah,
and so on and so forth. That's what I say every time when I'm recording with someone when they get frustrated because I can't get this part right. Like, dude, we're not recording with tape. We're fine. We're doing it all digital. We're fine.
yeah. It was quite the opposite. At the old times, quite the opposite. We had to meet each other personally, and in the beginning, 94 to 98, 99, I don't know, we met up to 3 times a week. So this was the most close friendship we ever had.
It's really
um,
cool because like
yeah,
it's really interesting to hear that because you don't have people rehearsing like they used to because I guess there's not really a need for it. Because if you got, because everyone's got a computer, everyone's got headphones. Most people's setup, whether it's as long as they're not a drummer most of the time, you can literally just plug it in, play, done. You can practice tracks like that, and you could be dead quiet because again, it all comes out of your headphones. Drummers are a little bit less fortunate like that, unless they spend quite good money on an electric kit. Then it becomes it's like can't really play drums at 12 o'clock at night.
yeah,
But
yeah.
so what made you contact Marco in relation to starting to do music again exactly?
Did that happen?
Hmm?
You asked. When
Oh,
did that happen, or how does
why
it
did it
happen?
happen? Like why?
Yeah,
So, for example, why contact Marco to
yeah,
do music again instead of say put an advertisement in the papers or online? So like, looking for a drummer, anything like that.
yeah, yeah. Actually was not looking for a drummer, another musician. It was quite coincidentally because he just visited me after 10 years just to talk about the old times and about the old projects or the old bands and the old demos and what to do with it, remastering it, and exchanging some photos of this era, and you know, photos and videos at for sure are quite rare in that time,
Oh yeah.
back at that time. And now you are overwhelmed with it. Everywhere is videos and photos, but in the old days we had the old photo stuff and on negatives, and we have to watch all that. And yeah, and while playing, while talking about all that stuff, I showed him on the computer what I have done in the last months or 2 years, and then the idea came up to work together again.
That's really nice. It's so nice that things like
Just
that just
happened.
sort of happens. It's beautiful. I mean,
Yeah, and
that's the point of music. It just creates so much emotion in general, really.
yeah, and that's why the name Reawaken or Reawaken is so fitting. It's like being dead and being reborn again, but all of a sudden, you don't know, you even don't know that you will be reborn. It just happened.
Of course, no, that's completely understandable. In relation to that, what would you say are your main influences as a musician? Like, who are your main influences?
Yeah, there are quite several after so many decades of listening to metal music, especially metal music, because this was my first love when I was 11 years old, and and um, and there are so many great bands for back from the 90s. They are also well known and popular at these times, like Slayer, Metallica, and all that stuff. Of course, I listened to that. But it was like in the music nowadays, the Reawaken music is just yeah, a good image of that, because the broadband width was very wide. It comes from Metallica to Depeche Mode. It was in the same time in the 80s and 90s, and it happened at the same time. And those of that uh, were very influencing uh, my yeah were very influencing for me, because that was about my emotional mixture in my days of youth, and that fits the one aggressive component and the sad and yeah the sad component.
Yeah.
And I do know from Marco that he listened pretty much to Depeche Mode, and Alan Parsons Project
No,
was
brilliant.
one of his favorite. And after in the 2000s, 20 years ago now, I began to listen a lot to classical music and jazz. And because I spent some years for hanging around with a bass teacher, because I played the bass guitar and I wanted to improve my play for the metal, just for the metal. But he influenced me so much with soul and funk and jazz and classical music that it happens that it was quite fitting. And as you already know, as a metal maniac, metal is very familiar, very close to classical music
Oh yes, very
in
close.
its patterns. Yeah. So this was a nice harmonization for me, and I listened a lot to that. And maybe this is some stuff that goes into Reawaken too.
That's fantastic. I mean, in that regard, it's great to hear that you do listen beyond that. You listen past you look into the other horizons as well, because I know a lot of people who listen to metal will only do that. Only listen to
Mm.
metal, won't listen to anything else. But that's something I think. Um, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean that's something that I've always loved about metal German musicians and just German music fans in general. You guys are so genuinely, from my experience at least, you guys are so broad in your musical taste. You're not really that clamped down to, oh, this is that kind of music, this is that kind of music, I haven't listened to it, oh, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. But like as you said yourself, like you was learning classical and jazz and things like that, which, as you said, is very similar to metal, but also improves your playing and makes it more. Uh, it makes it easy to create melodies and knowing where to fit it in. Where you, as you said, you're mainly a bassist, so your main thing is to lock in with the drummer and to find where to fit into the song. While a lot of people who will write bass will simply think, okay, the bass just follows the guitar.
Yes.
But in relation, okay, so as a bassist, who would you say are your top three favorite bassists?
Top three. Yeah, the first one comes out of the jazz genre. It's Jaco Pastorius.
Oh, he's amazing.
Maybe you know it. Maybe you know it. Yeah, he invented the fretless bass, and you may hear that I play a fretless bass, and I love that sound from the first tone from the beginning. It was so awesome, so yeah, mind blowing, and there comes the bridge between just playing with a drummer, just playing a rhythm, the rhythm part, to very melodical, um, yeah, very melodical work. Maybe counteracting to the guitars, or maybe flowing with it, or playing the second tone. I don't know the word for that. Yeah,
Or
another
just
voice for
slapping
that.
chords and
Yeah,
all
yes.
sorts.
And there is so many things you can do with a bass guitar, and that influenced me a lot, and brought up so many ideas to not only to use the bass, but to experiment and play with the musical issues, and there are only a relatively small number of very good bass players in the metal scene that come from that have got a big musical background.
Oh yeah.
As you already said, the most bass players just playing along with a rhythm guitar and finished.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, that their mistake is they let the guitarist write the bass lines.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he doesn't. Most guitar players I know have no idea, have absolutely no idea of bass playing.
I was I
There is a myth about Jimi Hendrix, and someone said, if he were even a better musician at that time, he became a bass player. He dropped the guitar.
brilliant. Yeah, I was firmly put in my place a few months ago when we got our bassist in, because I've always known him as a guitarist. So he says to me one day, "Oh, what if I play bass in your band?" I'm like, "Okay, we need a new bassist. I know you can definitely play this." So it comes back, "Yeah, I'm not playing with a pick." I'm like, "Okay, fine." And then he starts playing slap bass, and he's playing essentially like Les Claypool from Primus. I'm like, "Shit, how are you this good? What the hell? Why don't you boast about how good of a bassist you are?" So I was
um,
firmly put in my place with that.
yeah,
What about the other two influences? You said Jaco Pastorius.
yeah. Of course, Steve Harris is a great bridge between playing very melodically and a brilliant rhythm line. And as far as I know, in my youth times, he was several times voted for the best bass player in metal music, of course. So this is one, and another good bass player. Yeah, John Mayang of Dream Theater. Of course, he is more than quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a little bit good, isn't he? like the rest of Dream Theater, they're all a little bit good at their instruments.
Yeah, yeah, they're geniuses. Nothing to say about that.
I was actually watching an interview with John Petrucci just a few days ago, and the guy who was interviewing him asked him, um, "How do you remember all of these songs? Like, how do you remember to play these songs?" And he said to the interviewer, like, "I'm really glad you've asked me this because no one ever asked this. Basically, we'll set a show, and then for like 2 weeks, I'll just be stressing at home. They're like, shit, how do I play this? I don't remember how to play this at all. So it's like just going at his wife, like, how did I play this? I can't remember because his wife is also a guitarist. So I think, from what I remember, I think she actually also helps him and corrects him. It's like, no, John, this is what you're playing. And he's just like, shit, we've got the show in 2 weeks. Why am I playing?
Yes, nice.
Uh, it's great to see because so, guys like Dream Theater, they could have such a big ego. They could really be like, a big ball rock star, like fuck you, we're biggest thing in the world. But there's such like every time I've seen an interview with them, they always seem like such nice, normal guys. And John Petrucci just seems so humble. But yeah, away from Dream Theater, we talk about Reawaken. So, what
But
are
sorry to interrupt you, but this is very interesting. That we are talking about progressive metal again and again, and other musical influences. This is quite typical for Reawaken. So we are talking about Reawaken actually all the time.
like that's the thing. That progressive metal has definitely gotten broader over the last few years. I think there's like a lot of different sort of subgenres to progressive metal now. Like one of the most recent ones that comes to mind is gent, which is probably one of the most recent progressive metal genres that I can think of. But it's like it's so different from normal progressive metal as well because gent is so clean. It's so heavily produced, which it does have. I do get a feeling that there is some pop music that's thrown into that, or it's metal. It's progressive metal with a pop music production, I guess.
Yes.
But I'm waffling about gent.
Yeah.
What kind of what are the plans that you have for plans you guys have for Reawaken? It's like for the future.
Yeah, after issuing the album, we finally met Davide from and his yeah agency, and now he's boosting Reawaken in a kind, and I'm very thankful for that because we are not as good as making music in yeah in all that issue stuff and all that promoting. Yes, we had difficulties with promoting the whole stuff, and now it works very fine, and maybe there will be another opportunity with Davide to work further. And in the meantime, we just continued to do what we love, just making music at home and exchanging the tracks and making some new songs. And some are quite different. And we did regarding the old school issue, we did some cover versions of our heroes back in the 80s or 90s. So look at that for that, Motorhead and something like that. And this was quite a lot of fun, and we did it with a Reawaken sound. So maybe this is the next step to see how to merge it with really with the old stuff and with what we have created. And yeah, so we're looking forward for another issue. Maybe not an album, maybe an EP with 5 or 6 tracks, but maybe it is progressing to another album. I don't know. And yeah, we just keep on doing what we love.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to hearing more from you guys. Really do. And you're right. David does such a great job, really, and he's bringing fantastic bands like yourself to the podcast. I love having these conversations that I am able to have due to him. So thank you very much, dude. Um, but yeah, in relation to that, um, is there? Yeah, I'm out of questions to be honest. Is there anything else that you wanted to say to people listening at all?
Listening at all. No.
Okay
No.
then. Yeah.
I'm
So
I,
yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, mate.
I'm just appreciating all the different views from all the listeners and the different interests and all the discussing. I enjoyed it very much to talk about with you about the old days, about the modern days. And yeah, it's very refreshing. And yeah, and again, the name Reawaken just fits for it. It's just it's not warming up the old stuff. It's not it's quite fresh in taste. Everything we talked about and everything we are doing, it feels very alive. And so are the feedbacks and the reviews from the listeners, and I'm thankful for that. And in the first in the when I got the first reviews, I was kind of disappointed because I thought it was very easy to listen and it is very clear in categorizing it.
Mm.
And I was disappointed because I thought it was much more simple than in the old days. So this must be very direct and everybody will get comfortable with it in a minute. And this wasn't the case. And first, after being a little disappointed, then that it gets into, yeah, into a new, fresh, alive thing. So thank you very much for that.
No,
This is
thank
what I
you,
want to say. Thank you.
and thank you for coming on. So yeah, for you guys listening, check out Reawaken, and thank you so much for listening to us and the Mesmerise podcast. We'll see you guys soon.